Hi everybody, and welcome to this instructional video for Football Manager 16. I'm looking to introduce you to this amazing game, and we're going to start a new career. We're going to play the standard Football Manager version, and we are going to use the winter update. That's the later one for Football Manager 16. And we'll patiently wait while it loads and does its thing. I'm going to choose a smaller league than I ordinarily would. Typically I'll look for something a little bit larger. I'll include England, Germany, Spain, Italy, Portugal, Holland, Belgium, all sorts of things. But for the purposes of showing you through, I'm only going to choose England, and I'm only going to choose the Premier Division as playable. If you wanted to, ordinarily I'd have lots of other leagues added in so I can keep an eye on them and I can browse through them, grab their coaches, grab their players. As it is, I'll still be able to grab the players, but the amount of coaches that are available will be limited. An important thing when you're starting a new game is choosing the earliest period that you can. When you start with a new team, you're going to need to train them in your tactics, and if you do like I did in my last video, starting very late, you will find that they don't know anything about your tactics and will likely lose regularly. I'm using the large database, so I end up with 10,000 players, and that's a good amount. I've selected only one league. That's perfect. Waiting patiently while things load. What you'll notice with this game is, although it's not graphics heavy, the amount of calculations done in the background are huge, so you'll need to expect some loading times, particularly on older machines. That can be tweaked by the stars that we saw down here. Those indicate how fast the game will go. The more leagues you add, the slower it will go. The larger the database that you run from, I chose large, the slower it will run. You can tweak things right down. If you're running a very old PC, you can choose one of the smaller leagues and choose only the league that you want to play in and choose a small database, and you should still be able to get some enjoyment from the game. It's actually really fun playing in the smaller countries, particularly the ones in Europe, because trying to bring your minnow team into the Champions League or the Europa League, I forget the official terms for them, will be a real challenge, and when you get there it'll be a real accomplishment. When you start, you get to create your new manager. I'm Tony the Hoofer. That'll be fine. I've actually gone through and already configured this chap. I'd advise copying these if you're creating your own manager. You can change that focus to be attacking if you like. I find it harder in England to find good defensive coaches, so I'm going to take control of the defending myself. I'm going to select Liverpool because I'm familiar with them and they're the best team on the planet. I'll leave you to comment on that if you feel the need. Here's the coaching configuration, your managerial style is how it's termed. So as I said, I've focused on defending as well as the 3 core stats for any coach: determination, discipline, and motivating. And I'll start playing. I'm going to overwrite a save game that I tried to record some guides with previously, and this was the one in which I started very late on in the season, so I ended up with in the preseason, so ended up with a team that had no idea how to play my tactics. I'm going to right that wrong this time, and we're starting nice and early in the preseason, so I'm taking over from the wonderful Jurgen Klopp, and I will be training the guys in my own tactic. I've taken the Liverpool hot seat. I get the option in my email to sit down for a meeting with Liverpool chairman Thomas Werner. I don't think he is the chairman anymore. I think that's changed now. But because I only buy these games every 2 years, you'll find some outdated information here and some players that are no longer with the team. I'm going to skip these meetings because I already know what will happen. I already know how I want to set things up. Other emails that I'll be getting in here are my transfer updates, so this lets me know that I've got a lot of players out on loan, as well as a future transfer already booked. So Matip's joining us. That's good to know. I didn't actually notice that last time. And we've got a whole heap of players out on loan, some of whom I want to try and bring back, but we'll go into that later. All of these players who are out on loan at present, you won't be able to bring back. Ordinarily, if you'd done the transfer yourself, you'd have an option to recall loanee. I think the term is, but because these are built into the game, you won't get the chance to recall them yet. We've got some injuries. Nice 2 and 4 months. Ow. For Daniel Sturridge. 2 to 3 months for Jordan Henderson and John Flanagan. We should bear in mind that we've started at the 1st of July, so we've got quite some time before our first actual game. I've clicked on schedule and I'm having a look here. This is our first real game on the 8th of the 8th, so we're the 1st of the 7th. We've got a full month and a week before we start actually needing to get players back for important games. So we can look at these a little bit more optimistically. Hendo's expected to be out for 1 to 2 months. Sturridge is out for what was that? 1 to 3 months. I think it ends up being about 3 months for Dan. New subscriptions is the other email that you begin the game with. This I would ordinarily go through and edit down. I don't want to know about most of these things, but that's okay. We'll ignore those for the moment and clear them as they come through. So things we should look at are the menu down the side. We'll go through this and then we'll wrap this video up. All of the main areas in the game are contained here or accessible through here. Your home up the top gives you information about the league that you're in, the next game that you've got coming up, and various stats about the players within your team. There's scroll bars alongside those, so there's a little bit more information. Another important part of this is the job security area. In here, you want to keep your job security high. When your job security is low, the board will look to replace you with a new manager, and that's never fun, because then you have to start from the ground up, and all of the wonderful players that you've brought on and the amazing tactics that you've developed will be lost. The finance ancillary information here is not terrifically informative, except for the transfer budget. So we know that we've got a transfer budget at the moment. There's also an interesting line here: 75% of transfer revenue is available. That means anytime we sell a player at present, 25% of that money will go back to the club owners. Presumably, actually I know this for a fact, they've got a hefty loan out at present, so we're subsidizing that with players that we sell. The next area is the inbox. We began the game in here. This is the primary focus of the game. All information that you get will come through into here. You will need to search for other information elsewhere, but we'll see that as we proceed through. Oh, we can change our subscriptions in here, and we can look at news from around the world and from other leagues that we're interested in. The squad is one of the most important areas in the game, as are the under-21s and the under-18s to a lesser extent. The squad shows us all of the players in the first team. We also see players from the first team who are out on loan at present, including Lazar Markovic and Mario Balotelli. Super Mario. I've changed this view slightly to add in the scouting potential. I've added these columns by right-clicking at the top, saying insert a column, and I went to scouting, and when these two columns weren't there, I would have seen one that said scouting potential and scouting ability. I've also added the weekly wage because this is a valuable thing. I've added the weekly wage and the value because both of these are valuable to me when I'm considering whether or not I sell a player. For example, Colo Toure is costing us £70,000 a week, and he's worth £600,000. One of the first things I'll do in the game is look to sell Colo, as much as I like the lad. He's not good enough for our squad with 2 stars. We ideally want to have 3 stars or more. That's the base rating that I work from. That's personal choice. You can work with whatever you feel comfortable with working. For me, 2-star players are going to let the squad down. 3-star players, particularly defenders, are okay. Not a big problem there. Joe Allen, we need to consider the overall team makeup before we make too many quick decisions with regards to the potential ability or the opinions of our scouts / coaches. So we'll look into this probably in the next video. The schedule here shows us the games we have scheduled. We've got one in particular very interesting preseason friendly. That's absolutely not the type of friendly that I would normally organize, but that's okay. In the competitions, we can see that we're involved in the Premier League, the Premier Division, and we've got an expectation to qualify for the Euro Cup. So that's for people who don't play English leagues or don't unfamiliar with the English league. That means we need to get 6th or better to make the Euro Cup. In the FA Cup, we're expected to reach the semi-final, and that begins on the 9th of the 1st. With the Capital One Cup, the board don't mind at all how we do with this, but we'll enter that on the 23rd of the 9th. And with the Euro Cup, we're expected to reach the group stage, which is fine because we'll be entering the group stage anyway. We've already reached the board's expectation. The under-21s and under-18s show the under-21 and under-18 squads respectively. I've set these up with the similar columns so that I can keep an eye on the players that have great potential. We've got a couple here who look great in the long term, and I think we have a couple in here who also look really good. These players are good enough that I'll likely move them up to the first squad, but we'll investigate that in the next video. Competitions we looked at. Tactics is one of the most important areas in the game. It's in here that we'll configure our team and how they're going to play, but we'll investigate this again in the next video. Team report gives us general information about the team, probably one of the least used areas in the game for me. Staff shows us our coaching staff, our scouting staff, and our physio staff, along with every other member of the staff at Liverpool Football Club. Training allows us to set team training and individual training, and also allows us to configure who we want to do particular coaching. scouting allows us to examine various players, examine the players that we have information on. The unknown shows that we haven't had any scouting done on these players, but we have some base information: their age, their weight, their height, the companies, the countries they come from, the clubs they play for, and their expected value, their prospective market value. Transfers shows players who are coming in, shows all of the players that are coming in or out, or players who are coming in, or players who are coming out. These areas fill in as we have transfers occurring. Club information shows general information about the club, shows our previous league highs and lows over since 20 years prior, I guess. It shows core information about the manager, the captain, vice captain, key player, and hot prospect, away kit colours, but particularly in here of interest is information about our... It's been a while actually, let me find the area that I need to show you. Our stadium capacity, I believe, is in here, but I'm failing to see it. We'll examine this in more detail later. This board window is useful. It allows us to set whether we're going to be using the grand total of money that we want, that we have on wages or on transfer budget. This isn't a great deal of money. 22 million pounds isn't a great deal of money, so I'll likely be having that quite high and looking to get one player in, with currently spending £2,157,000 each week. That will give us £90,000 for wage and £19 million to transfer with. I'll cancel that. I'll likely do that in the future. I'll cancel that for the moment. If you change this too regularly, the board may prevent you from making further changes. The other important area in here is board requests. Board requests are terrifically useful to increase the level of your training facilities, to increase the level of your youth facilities, and to improve your youth recruitment. That one in particular I love. Every time I see that appear, I'll try to push for the youth recruitment to improve, because that means the players that come in as 16-year-olds naturally through your youth team training will be better. As we can see at the moment, we haven't got, we've only got a couple of reasonable, we've got some very nice 16-year-old players, but the vast majority of our 16 and 17-year-olds are not going to make it anywhere near the first squad. So we want to change that by improving our youth recruitment. There's lots of other things in there which we'll investigate at a later date. There's also information about all of the staff that you have, your financial information here, and your board security. You can investigate it better by going into this area and doing summaries on each of the various parts. The finances area is probably my least used, even over a team report. This shows your financials. It's only really important when you're trying to push to increase your transfer budget. I don't otherwise use it. And that's a quick rundown of all of the main areas of the Football Manager main window. I'll wrap this one up here, and we'll come back for the next video soon.